Welcome to our Pundit's preview show where we look ahead to Nottingham Forest on Friday night. We're delighted to be joined by Sarah Clapson from the Nottingham Post. Sarah, are you okay?
Yes, good, thank you. Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you for coming on. Nottingham Forest, obviously, Friday night in front of the Sky cameras. What can Huddersfield Town fans expect from them in terms of style of play?
It's going to be a tricky one, I think, on Friday. Forest haven't started the season well. They've not won yet. And there's kind of been... they need points. They need a win. They need to get going. They've kind of started off a bit slow. There's been a few criticisms from some fans about a negative style of play from the manager and how Forest do tend to sit back. They are better on the counter-attack. We saw that last season, and for a while it did work well, but this season it's not got going to the same extent yet. So I think it's going to be interesting to see whether Forest go into this game doing that, or whether they, because they need a win, whether they go out and try and get something, whether they try and score goals, whether they try and take the game to Huddersfield. I think because it's an away game, what we're probably more likely to see is that they will try and play on the counter-attack still and sit back a bit. And it does suit their game. It has worked last season. It's just kind of getting it going again, I think, that's been the problem for Forest.
I was going to say, obviously, last season, Forest's playing away from home on that counter-attack really paid off for them, didn't it? At home, they had a slightly different style, but I heard during lockdown that the style that they played away from home, they also then played at home behind closed doors. Is that right?
Yeah, they did seem to try and invite a bit more pressure and not kind of take the game to teams at home, which is kind of what you want in your home games. You want to be on the front foot and getting forward more. It's not quite panned out like that, but as you say, I mean, last season playing on the counter attack, it did suit them. They do have the players to make it work when they get going. It's just that this year it's not happened yet. I do think they'll probably still play like that on Friday. I think we'll probably see a similar style to how they've started the season. They have created chances in these first few games. It's just they've not taken them. They've missed some really good opportunities. Lewis Grabban, he's a striker that last season got 20 odd goals. Normally you put him in front of goal and give him a chance and he'll take it, but he's not this year. He's missed a few decent chances. I'm sure the goals are coming. It's just when and how many more chances Forest need to create for him. But hopefully he can get a few on Friday.
Obviously, they've had two defeats in the Sky Bet Championship campaign, QPR and Cardiff. What have you made from those games? Has anything changed this season at all?
I think they're struggling with the effects of last season. I don't think it's quite out their system yet. I think it's still weighing on a few of the players' minds. They've changed a lot of players for us. They've brought in a lot of new signings, but even so, that the players that were there last season, I think it's still perhaps in the back of their minds, and they're thinking about it. They kind of had this problem after the restart where they conceded a lot of late goals, and I think that's perhaps it's niggling away at them a little bit. That short turnaround, it hasn't really helped them. They've got a few players that are perhaps struggling a little bit for match sharpness, match fitness. It's just getting that win, just getting the result, and the fact they've started with 2 defeats, 3 if you include the League Cup, it's starting to get a little bit nervy and a bit edgy, I think. So it's how they handle that, and it's how they deal with that pressure. They have got some experienced heads in there. They need them out on the pitch, and it's just about settling down really and getting going. It's easy to get carried away, but it is only 2 games.
Yeah, I can imagine missing out on the playoffs the way that Forest did can play on the minds a little bit, especially with that short turnaround, like you say, a shorter pre-season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that final game, they were a broken team. He was a broken manager as well, Sabri Lamucci. It was a horrible watch and a horrible experience for them. And it was always going to be a case of how they dealt with that, whether they came out and took it on the chin and kind of used it in the right way, or whether they let it bother them. I think at the moment they've not quite got it out their system yet. because it was only a few weeks ago, and normally you'd kind of have that long pre-season, or you'd have a bit of a break in the summer where you can switch off, forget about it, come back, start afresh, and they've not really had that. I think perhaps more than a lot of other teams in the Championship, they're struggling because of that, because they've had this quick turnaround and they've kind of just got to get on with it. They've got to try and lift themselves somehow, and they need to do it quite quickly, I think, because if you don't want to keep on the run that they're on at the moment.
Yeah, I can imagine they tried to do that in the transfer window as well. At the early parts of the window, a lot of championship experience came in. And then obviously some younger talents come in more recently as well. That kind of blend, I suppose, would be really helpful for their squad.
Absolutely. I think they made a big point of their transfer policy this summer of bringing in championship experience. They thought that last year that was something they lacked going to. They brought in a lot of new signings last summer, but perhaps a lot of them didn't have that kind of experience of English football. And some of them did very well. It's no kind of slight on them, but I think that the club thought we need players that know what to expect when we go to tough teams and tough grounds, and they know what it takes to do well in the Championship. And they really made that a key part of their transfer policy. And they brought in a lot of players that know the division and that know what it takes. And now it's just getting them all to blend, because they've made all these new signings, but you've got to make them gel on the pitch, and you've got to get them all working together, and that takes time. And it's just getting them going.
Yeah, of course. And obviously one of the players from last season that was really stand out was Bryce Samba. Obviously he was in the PFA Team of the Year. How good was he, and is he?
He is a good keeper. He's really solid. I think more than anything, he's a big character. And I know we haven't got fans there at the moment, unfortunately, but when they were there, they loved him because he was a real fan's favourite, a real character on the pitch. He'd wind up the opposition, he'd get opposition strikers going, he'd get opposition fans going, and the crowd loved that because it gives them something. But more than that, he is a good keeper. He's pretty solid. His shot stopping's pretty good. His distribution is pretty good. He's been a really good addition for Forest, really key signing, and he made some big saves. He saved them, he got them a lot of points last season. I'm sure it'll be the same again. The manager, he's brought in another keeper in the summer, but he's made it very clear that Bryce Samba is his number one and he's his first choice. And having that kind of goalkeeper behind you, that helps the defence no end.
Yeah, absolutely. And another player that Huddersfield Town fans will know very well is obviously Joe Lollies. He's really impressed, hasn't he, since he's been at Forest?
He has, yeah. He's a really key player for them. When he's on top form, he's brilliant. He'll create chances, he scores goals, he puts the opposition on the back foot, he causes defenders problems. He's not quite got going yet this season. I think towards the back end of last season, he was struggling a bit with injury, and he's maybe still feeling the effects of that a little bit. But once he's in full flight, he's brilliant. He's a really big player for Forest. They need him on top form if they're going to be challenging at the top end of the table, because he makes such a difference. And he's a player that the rest of the team look to. If they're struggling to create something, they give Joe Lolly the ball, and more often than not, he'll try and pop up with something or try and make things happen. And that's what you need. You need players like him. And he's a great guy as well. Great to have in the dressing room. I know he's very popular with his teammates. So he's a really key player.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Huddersfield Town, like Forest, are still looking for the first win of the season. Where do you see the key battles being in this game? Obviously, this summer, Huddersfield Town have changed their style of play, trying to play more on the front foot, keeping possession. Where do you think the key elements are going to be in this match?
I think a big part is going to be how Forest defend. The first two games, they've looked a little bit wobbly and a little bit fragile at the back. And if Huddersfield go at them, then that's going to put a lot of pressure on the defenders, and it's how they stand up to that and how they cope with that. Forest need that solid base, I think, before they then try and play forward and try and get something. And if they can do that, then, that's going to make a big difference in the game. And equally, if they get one or two chances, then you're going to need somebody like Lewis Grabban or Lyle Taylor to take them from Forest's perspective. But I think more than anything, they need that solid platform. They need something to build on and to work from, because more often than not, they do play on the counter attack. They soak up that pressure and then try and get teams on the break. So from Forest's perspective, I think it's all about how the defence play, and obviously from Huddersfield, it's how they manage to cause them problems and how they manage to, you know, manipulate the defenders and try and create something for themselves. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think, to see how Forest line up on Friday night, whether the manager makes changes because of what's happened. We're expecting another new signing before then, so whether he comes straight in. It's going to be interesting because he's got quite a lot of options now. Sabri Lamucci's got quite a big squad and they've added strength in depth. So he's got choices. It just depends on how he uses them, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, thank you very much for giving us such a great insight into Nottingham Forest.
No problem. Thank you.